Settle down, man. My name's Shaun-Golf, and I'm a physical therapist here at Nationwide Children's for our sports and orthopedic department. I work in our Dublin facility, which will actually be in for the afternoon labs. So I have 2 patients there. I also serve on our orthopedic residency faculty, and then I'm also our evidence-based practice coordinator. So talk to you about evaluating and treating an injured golfer. I'm passionate about golf. I love playing it. I love treating golfers. Love learning about the science of the swing, everything about it pretty much. So that's my kind of 2 cents on that. So the objectives for this, the main takeaways, I guess, is I want you to be able to pick out specific things, subjectively and objectively, you want to look at and ask for a golfer. I'll go through kind of the basic biomechanics of the normal swing. I'll also look at abnormal swings or swing faults. So injuries they can maybe cause, but also some restrictions or things that might result in those swing faults. And I'll also talk about some common golf-related injuries and some return to sport type stuff. So why is this game so hard? So we have this debate all the time, or at least in the past we did at my clinic. Got a couple of baseball people there, so we're always talking about what's harder to be an elite baseball player or elite golfer. Obviously, I'm biased on it, but so some of the things on this is why it's so hard. Well, you're transferring away from one foot to the other. Well, you're leaning forward, which kind of throws off your entire neuromuscular firing patterns. That makes it a little more difficult. You're also doing this on a compliant surface. It could be wet grass or in a bunker or on a side hill lie or things like that, which can make things a little more difficult. It's a game of paradoxes and counterintuition. So you hit down the ball to make it go up, to make it curve right, you swing to the left, to make it curve left, you swing out to the right. Everything's just, nothing makes sense, but it's still fun to play. So those, and then also you're generating a ton of speed in a very short period there. So with that, you couple that with very little room for error. So the size of the club heads, if you're off just by a few millimeters, it can drastically impact the distance, the direction, everything there. So and also with golf, there aren't any foul balls or no redo. So I think that's the best argument right there. So some terminology. So this time I'll do some basic terminology. Obviously, there are different varying levels of golf knowledge in here probably. So kind of start with the basics. So everything I'll talk about will just be in reference to like a right-handed golfer, just to simplify things, so we're not going back and forth. So the lead side is the left side, and then the trailing side is the right. And then the shoulder turns, that's a common term in golf. It's actually a misnomer. It has nothing to do with shoulder rotation or shoulder turn. It's actually just in the transverse plane trunk rotation, trunk and hip rotation. So that's your shoulder turn. That's what the golfer is referring to. So it's just describing the position of the actual shoulders turning there. Then swing flaw I kind of touched on earlier. It's just a flaw, a technique flaw essentially is what that is. That usually will result in some inconsistency and potentially injury. Slice, that for a right-handed golfer, that's just an errant shot that goes wildly to the right, hook is going to the left. And then grip, so weak versus strong. So that actually has nothing to do with the actual grip pressure. It's purely just positioning on the club. So in the past, I've done golf talks. I've had a club that demonstrates stuff. The last one I did, I about broke the laptop swinging. So I decided to play it safe and not have one today. So I'll rely more on my pictures here. But so with these, so weak grip would be where if you take your thumb and your forefinger and kind of put together, so that V that it makes right there, that's kind of your reference point of that. So if you have a weak grip, both of the V's will either point to your chin or farther more towards the left side, so like a counterclockwise or like that. So with that, usually golfers might have a tendency to slice it or like try to flip the ball to try to square the club face. Conversely, a strong grip is turned the other way, so more towards like your right shoulder or your right hip even. And the neutral is kind of in between. So in between, I'd say your head and your shoulders, like upper trap kind of region would be neutral. Now you can be a good golfer with any of these three. They're, strong grip. Zach Johnson, he's a multiple major winner. He has very strong grip. Jim Furyk has a really weak grip. He's won a major before, so you can still be good, but you're going to have some kind of compensations in there that you're going to have to put in there to make yourself hit the ball straight. So the setup. So this is something that's important to kind of learn about, just because you don't need any fancy, motion capture equipment or anything to assess this. You can have your golfer just, get a club and actually stand there, and you can look at that and pick up on some things. So it generally should be in a pretty athletic posture. So weight on the ball is your feet, knees slightly flexed, leaning forward. So your trunk should be erect, but not overly, like this. It should just be kind of upright like Adam Scott. He's kind of like has the perfect setup, the kind of the perfect swing that everybody's going for. Would be probably the best example of that. So that and also just kind of you're hinging from your hips and your arms are just kind of hanging there. You shouldn't be out like this or crowded like this. So it's important to make sure this is correct because if it's not, it just sets up a chain reaction of bad things essentially. So the backswing. So on the backswing, you're transferring your weight to your trailing side there. The weight should stay on the inside of your foot. You shouldn't be swaying out like this. If you look at any good golfer, they won't be swaying like that. The kind of the standard is like a 90-degree shoulder turn, so getting perpendicular to your target line, I would say. The pro golfers go well past that. There are a lot of other golfers that don't go to that and are still good. So once again, these are kind of general, general findings you would see there. So, and also the left arm should be straight. So that quote's like, it should be rigidly straight. Some people try to think they're trying to keep us completely locked out straight. You don't want to do that, but it shouldn't be doing this either. So it should be straight, but not rigid there. And then for the downswing, so initiate with the lower body. So you're shifting to your front leg. Your hips are kind of opening toward the target. If you look at any pro player, they have all kinds of different backswings and setups, things like that. But if you look at impact, essentially every single one will look like this. They'll have their hips forward, their hands are in front of the ball, like that. You can look at any one of them, and they will look pretty much just like that. It's the moment of truth at impact there that kind of separates the elite golfers from the hacks that's self-included in that. And then also for the leading wrist, it should be flat or slightly bowed, which bowed in golfing terms is just flexed. So a lot of amateur golfers that flip, they try to hit the club, they'll be like this at impact, which you can see Tiger here, you got a very flat wrist, or sometimes they can be bowed like that, so flexed, which gets your hands in front of the ball so you can compress the ball and really get some velocity on it. And then for your follow through, your weight should be completely shifted. The biggest thing of this is balance. Once again, these pro golfers are swinging it. Some of them are even swinging like 125 miles an hour, but yet they'll always finish perfectly balanced just like this because they have the correct sequencing and they're swinging in control. Versus you go out on any golf course watching people try to just absolutely murder the ball, slice it over here, and they about swing out of their shoes and fall over. So you should look about like that, how Rory is right there. So kind of some general considerations when you're evaluating golfers. So the ball swing is essentially unidirectional. Yes, you're going back and forth, but the force is always going, one way there toward the target. So because of that, the vast majority of injuries are going to be overuse injuries. So ghost red out found that greater than 8%. So they're rarely going to be due to trauma. Usually some random thing like you'll hitting off a hard surface, hit a root, or sometimes in the rough. So that's the really tall grass on the sides of the course. If you try to hack your ball out of there, sometimes you can get some injuries with that. Get struck by a ball or slip down a hill or something random like that. So it's actually going to be overuse injuries. And then also in general, the golf swing involves alternating periods of stability and mobility. So you have to work on both. It's not just one or the other. You might have some patients, yes, that need to focus on more than the other, but you got to make sure you're addressing both there. And then high handicapper. So we'll talk a little bit more, a couple slides here about handicap, but that's just really assessing the skill level of the golfer. So if you've got someone who is not very good, there's a better chance that their swing might be contributing to their injury versus if you got someone who's really good, like a pro golfer, a college golfer, more than likely their swing is not causing the injury. It's probably more like an overuse type thing or some kind of strength and flexibility deficit, something like that. And then also lower extremity injuries, they rarely occur from golf. I mean, you might have some hip stuff from golf, but they can be exacerbated. So someone has, got a knee issue or an ankle issue, it can be exacerbated by playing golf. You're usually not going to injure your knee golfing. And that can result in some compensations there that will negatively affect kind of everything from that point. And then also, so the biggest kind of like overarching theme I'd say of this lecture would be regional interdependence, which most of you probably heard that term, but it's just where seemingly unrelated impairments are contributing to the main complaint there. So an example of that would be, say a golfer has a left ankle sprain that could actually may result in some medial epicondylitis on the opposite side, which seems like a stretch. But, a physical therapist is really good about trying to somehow make it fit. Oh yeah, that totally makes sense. It could be this, and this. Well, so if they have a left ankle sprain, they're not going to, if they have instability, if they don't want to transfer their weight to their lead side, they might hang back, which makes them have to throw the club and then overuse these the flexor mass on their right side. So that's something you can see that could maybe potentially cause that. So I guess the theme of that is making sure you're looking everywhere. Not just the area, but not even just above and below the joint too. I mean, you got to look far beyond that as well. And also, it's good to ask the patient if there's a specific phase of their golf swing or part of their golf swing that where they have pain. A lot of times it will be. They'll say, it's right when I hit the ball or at the top of my backswing right here. They'll usually have a specific part they can point out to, which will kind of help you break it down. And gotta look at that. So for subjective, some specific things to ask. So important one time of year has been playing. So if they're new to the game, then once again, there's more likely a chance that they've got some swing issues they may need to work on. Time spent playing versus practicing. So you got some people that just play they might say, well, I play like every couple weeks or so, but then they might be going to the range and hitting balls for 5 hours, which is a ton of swings there. So it's not just how much they're playing on the course, how much they're actually practicing too. Lessons. So if you got someone who's never had any lessons, that's something that keep in the back of your mind that once again the swing might be an issue there. And the custom clubs too. So if you've got a really tall patient or a really short patient, that could be an issue too. More so for your taller patients, because if you're tall, obviously your clubs are too short, you're going to have to lean over like this. Versus if it's the clubs are too long for you, usually you'll just choke down on them, so it usually doesn't affect as much. Versus the club's too short, that will kind of probably impact a little bit more. And then asking any other injuries, so come back to that ankle sprain slides. Even if you're treating an upper extremity patient, ask about lower extremity injuries because that can affect things as well. And then ask about warming up. Most people they show up the course 2 minutes for their tee time, go right up on the tee box and just crank a driver as hard as they can. So I would ask about that as well, which we'll talk about a little bit more depth here later. And then skill level. So that was the handicap. So that's just a numerical quantification, I guess, of your skill level. So it kind of evens the playing field so you can actually play against people that are better or worse than you. And it just makes it to where you can offset things to where whoever's playing the best of their abilities that day wins. It's kind of a cool thing in golf you can do to help make it more enjoyable. But so with that, your range is, if you're a single-digit handicap, so up through 9 there, even to 10, you're usually pretty good. Scratch means you're a 0 handicap, which means you're really, really good. And then you can have plus handicaps. So it means like you typically shoot under par, so you have to add strokes here, which you're very good for doing. That's pretty rare. So Bayes and Wadsworth study found that the higher handicap players usually experience injuries from faulty mechanics, and then the lower ones would be more overuse, kind of like I mentioned earlier. So in general, the better the player, the less likely their swing is probably a possibility. But I still wouldn't completely rule it out because there's some. I've seen people with some pretty jacked up swings that just know how to get the ball in the hole, so they can score well. So don't completely rule that out. So going kind of specific body areas here. So like the spine, so the low back pain is by far the most common injury you'll see with golfers. So rotational flexibility is huge. So in general, you want about 45 degrees of thoracolumbar rotation. The rest is coming from your hips. Now, obviously, that can vary depending on the person. That's kind of general number there. Seidel found that limited trunk rotation angle toward the non-lead side in amateur golfers correlated with the history of low back pain. So with these, in general, if you're limited in any one plane of motion in your spine, it's going to affect the other. So if you're limited in rotation, the golfer is going to try to get their club back there regardless. So they're going to raise up or do something funky because they're going to try to compensate because of that. So that's something to keep in consideration there. And so the goal for a golf swing is to stay in a consistent posture there. So they're leaning forward like this. They should be essentially just kind of rotating that around that axis, not going up like this and then down and up like this. It should be pretty much consistent if they want to hit the ball consistently. And then muscle strength and coordination. So Evans and Aldry found that golfers with a history of low back pain had significant reduction in transverse abdominis contraction, so decreased endurance. Also, there's been found less trunk extension strength in golfers with a history of low back pain, decreased retrospinal activity, and increased external oblique activity compared to non-low back pain. So there are a lot of either endurance issues or just kind of muscle firing pattern things that we've seen in the literature that correlate with back pain in golfers. So for the cervical spine, that's more, think of it as rotating caudally to cranially, so it's pretty much a fixed head, and you're rotating your body underneath there, so you're still getting cervical rotation there. Need about 70 or 80 or so to be able to actually keep your eye on the ball. If you have very limited rotation, obviously you get about right here. Either you're going to have to go like this, or you're going to have to shorten your swing. And then one common thing would be like neck pain with golfers. If you have a golfer who has neck pain, just look at their setup. So if everybody's been told, oh, keep your eye on the ball. If somebody hits the bat, oh, you pulled your head up. Just keep your head down. We'll watch your ball. Everybody says that. Keep your eye on the ball. So they're down like this. You can see what position my head is in here, and you try to turn, so you're completely taking up all the slack in your spine there, and then trying to rotate on it forcefully. So you can imagine that can create some issues there. So that's something you can look at. It might be simply looking at their setup, and they're like this, just that keep your chin up like this. That way they can actually turn underneath their head there. So something to look at. So for hips, like I talked about earlier, 45 about each way. That I've seen less than that, 40 up to 50. It kind of varies. I'd say average around there. So if there's some tightness in there, that's going to translate to more stress on their spine or swing fault. So if you're on your backswing, if you're maxing out your internal rotation on this trailing hip, then something's got to give. Then you're going to try to over rotate on your spine or lift up or start swaying or anything like that. Badadell found decreased lead hip internal rotation and favor distance, so external, and history of low back pain, so reduced hip mobility or range of motions correlated with low back pain. And then also, limiting that internal rotation, they found increased lumbar flexion and posterior pelvic tilt. So someone who has limited motion might try to posterior pelvic tilt to open up their hips a little bit more. So you can see it puts me in that rounded out position there that can put more stress on the back as well. And then also addressing hip and glute weakness, which we do with everybody. But even with the upper extremity person, you want to make sure you're looking at that as well. If they don't have good dynamic stability of their hips, they might sway or not shift their weight and do different things, which we'll talk about more when we go into the swing faults here later. SI joints, not going to get into debate about how important or what they do or what they don't do, but that's kind of transferring the weight from your lower body to your upper body to the club head. So there's a lot of forces going through there. So we'll see a lot of pelvic obliquity in golfers because of that constant turning forward to one side there. So I touched on it earlier, but so the address posture is probably the most important. If they're starting out too flex like this, or they're too extended, a lot of people try to really overdo it, like they'll just really arch their back and try to stick their butt out like that. It's also not good. So you want to maintain that lordosis, but it's not like you're trying to stick your butt out or something like that. And then so Lindsay and Horton found that elite golfers with low back pain tend to address the ball with more spinal flexion. It was a very small amount, but even pro golfers that were just slightly more flexed in their address posture were more susceptible to have back pain. And then hamstring tightness too. So you got some of the very tight hamstrings that will pull them that posterior pelvic tilt as well. So they can't really hinge from their hips. They're more like this and just round out their spine to try to hit. We talked about the club thing earlier. So just kind of some general treatment recommendations. So once again, regional independence, so making sure that you're looking at spine and both hips with these, both stability and mobility. So looking at local and global muscles there. Ton of rotary stuff, which we'll do more in the lab this afternoon, but just a ton of rotational stuff. So working on using your rotators as anti-rotators, like more stability stuff, but also using them as like a dynamic rotation as well, making sure we're working on both of those, which we'll do this afternoon. Look at their setup. So another recommendation is for like kind of back pain, things like that. You have them maybe use a push cart. So a lot of the high school and college golfers, they're not allowed to ride in carts. So they have to lug this huge bag around. So you can maybe recommend that if they're not allowed to actually ride in the cart. But with the carts too, so this would be more probably more of the older individual, but kind of both. Think if you're in that flex posture on a cart there, it's very bumpy to slamming yourself into this flexion here. If you got a older person maybe with a disc derangement or something, that can obviously create some issues there. And then some swing modifications. So I have some of these things in here that recommendations, but I'd say kind of caveat there, like if you're not really sure, I wouldn't just start throwing out like different swing modifications if you're not really familiar with the golf swing. We'll talk about later as well, but your goal is to figure out, okay, is this like a biomechanical issue that I can address, or is it just a technique issue that I maybe need to refer them to like a golf teaching pro or something like that. So we'll talk about that more later, but you don't want to start throwing out all these different modifications because just a small change can drastically impact both negatively and positively. It can make them a lot better, but it can also completely wreck somebody's swing if you start messing with things. So anyway, with this, you actually you can have them allow more hip turns. So A lot of people will try to do, especially younger golfers, like this X factor, so it's pelvic torso differential. So they'll try to restrict their hip turn and use more trunk rotation to really kind of wind that up and get more velocity. So by doing that, that's going to put a lot more stress on your low back. Versus if you let them just kind of turn everything together, that will take some stress on the back and keep it a little bit more neutral versus completely trying to torque that. Or you can also have them flare their lead foot. So if you have somebody that has limited hip turn rotation on the front side, so you have like an FAI person or something like that, having them just slightly turn their foot out will allow them to get through it better versus if their feet are forward and they're just jamming into internal rotation over and over again. You have them just turn their foot slightly like that. It allows them to kind of turn everything together and get through the ball a little better. So that's an easy one that you can have somebody try out to see. I usually won't throw somebody completely off. That's an easy one to suggest, but it can make a big difference there. So also just shortening your backswing. So people are always trying to turn his back as far as they can. Well, just one study found decreased trunk muscle activation with no loss of accuracy or club head speed. So this kind of goes to a point where I don't know if you guys that play ever had your swing evaluated or filmed. You can take like a 3/4 backswing, and to you it feels like you're stopping right here. If you actually look at it, you're going still, far back there. And also a lot of times if you ever notice you play it, sometimes if you just hit like a 3/4 swing, you'll actually hit the ball farther because you'll actually hit it flush versus trying to swing as hard as you can and miss hitting it. So it kind of goes along with this, having them just kind of shorten their backswing and focus more on actually hitting the ball solidly. They can hit the ball farther than what they were, but not wreck their back. So actually less shoulder turn. But if you're having some shoulder issues, you wouldn't want to recommend this because it's going to increase the demands of the shoulder. So you got to kind of pick and choose what you want to change there. So the shoulder, most injuries will be the non-dominant, the lead side. It's because of that horizontally adducted position here. You get some impingement there, AC joint pain in the front. A lot of times you'll see posterior capsule tightness, so making sure you're addressing that as needed based on your evaluation. Or if they have some micro instability, which we'll see more in our population, where they have laxity. So that will be more on their trailing shoulder at the top of their backswing or their follow through. They're in that 90-90 position there. So we'll get kids that have that. So they might have some internal impingement, posterior cuff stuff going on. So with that, obviously focusing on the rotator cuff, scap stave strengthening, because these are the ones that are providing that stability. They're also decelerating the club head as well. So they got to work on both ways there. So you got to make sure you're working on those. Making sure you're rolling out the C-spine. They'll just assume it's from the shoulder. They might have some ridiculous stuff going on there. And before even with shoulder, make sure you're looking at spine, hips, balance, all that stuff. Make sure everything is kind of checking out there. Otherwise, you're going to start compensating. And look at their dress posture. So if they're kyphotic, that's going to throw off the way their shoulders are working as well. So one swing modification with that would be to actually increase your shoulder turn. So having them try to keep their hands in the center of their chest. So actually turning your body more and keeping your hands out here versus just trying to get your arms back as far as I can, trying to actually turn your body. So like right now, if I put my hands out here, I got a full 90-degree, probably plus shoulder turn. But actually my hands are almost in the center of my chest. I'm almost neutral, not neutral, but just slightly adducted here, horizontally adducted versus completely trying to get the club back as far as I can behind me. So that's something you can potentially recommend there. And then elbow and wrist. So once again, roll out C-spine there, checking your rotator cuff, scap stave strength, and then looking at your hip and spine range of motion. It's not too much here on hand stuff. There's golfer's elbow, but actually tennis elbow is more common in golfers, which is kind of interesting. And then sort of terminating more now like epicondylologist, so not necessarily like an inflammatory process going on there. So kind of treating that as appropriately, not just assuming it's an inflammatory issue there. And then so like wrist stuff, you'll get some overuse stuff, but you can get some actually traumatic injuries with these. So taking a large divoter, like I said earlier, hitting a root or something of that nature can really wreak havoc, I guess, in your wrist. You get some TFCC, tears, trapezoidal impingement, and also ulnar siloid impingement. Or you might even get a disruption of the tendon sheath of the sensory carpi ulnar. So these are all significant injuries that would potentially be a surgical consult there. Or even fracturing the hook of the hamate. That's sometimes common in golfers. So with that, you would usually it could be the lead hand, and so you can check their hand positioning. So if their grip is too strong, so remember it was turned more, so your V's are pointing to your right shoulder. that puts a lot more pressure underneath that hook of the hamate versus if it's a more neutral, it wouldn't put as much pressure on there. It's something you can check there. But usually they're going to need to excise that. And kind of treatment thing of that is say you're just irritated, you can suggest having them wear padded biker gloves. You want them really looking intimidating on the golf course there. Never seen anybody do that, but yeah. So some golf specific things with the elbow and wrist. Looking at their tempo. So a lot of people, you'll see these pro golfers like, oh, they look like they're barely even swinging, like they hit the ball so far. They're actually swinging pretty fast. It's just they have good tempo, so their backswing will match somewhat to their downswing. There's a ratio, it's 3 to 1, so their backswings usually take 3 times as long as their downswing. And you can almost look at any pro golfer, and they'll be pretty close to that 3 to 1 ratio. Someone like Ernie Els, who swings like a slow to smooth swinger versus like a Ricky Fowler who's really fast, you actually break that down and be that same ratio, which is pretty cool. But that's the reason they look like they're swinging so easily, is because they have a good proportion there versus most amateurs. They have an excessively slow backswing because they have 100 different things in their head that they're going back. So they're going back like, okay, keep my head down, bring the club up, hold the baby bird, it turns far, and then they realize, oh crap, I gotta hit the ball and then try to like kill it. So totally throws off their sequencing there. So that would also get their grip pressure. So if you're holding it too tight, you have a tendency to kind of hit at the ball versus just swinging the club using centrifugal force there. They're actually just trying to like hit at the ball, so you'll get a lot more upper extremity injuries with that. And then also like the grip pressure. So the baby bird thing, that's kind of a saying. So like on a 0 to 10 scale, like a 3 out of 10, or pretend you're holding a baby bird, so you're not going to crush it, but you also don't want it flying out of your hands. That's kind of a common saying there to get your grip pressure right. And then also checking their grip size. So if they have really big hands, they need to have larger grips. Otherwise, they're going to have to hold tighter to keep the club in their hands. Or if they have really old grips as well, that can also make them have to hold on more with their hands, which will overuse their forearm musculature. So, for example, Malin recommend every 40 to 50 rounds. I mean, a lot of people don't count their rounds, but it's just more, because you might have somebody who doesn't play that often, but they go to the range and hit for 5 hours. So they're going to wear out their grips a lot more quickly than someone who doesn't do that. So more just having them check that, because that can be significant, especially if you're sweating playing in the summer. If it's raining out, you have to definitely grip a lot harder if you don't have good grips on there. And then the hand position, so like the strong versus weak. If you're weak, to turn counterclockwise, they'll be more likely to try to flip the club face and try to square it, versus if it's too strong, they're going to have too much pressure underneath the wrist, the hook of the hamate there. So maybe adjusting that as well. The first corny golf quote of the day. So it took me 17 years to get 3,000 hits in baseball. I did one afternoon on the golf course. Charles Barkley here. So I got at the Columbus Golf Show this past year. I went and saw Hank Haney spoke. He's a world-renowned golf instructor. And he started off his speech saying he thinks he's specifically qualified to basically address any golfer's issues, because he can say he's worked with the best golfer in the world, Tiger Woods, but he's also worked with the worst golfer, Charles Barkley here. So he feels like he can address anything in between. But I don't know if you've ever seen his swing, but it's pretty funny. So these swing faults. So with this, you're trying to determine, okay, is it psychomotor, or just a technique issue? Like, they actually have good strength, good flexibility. It's just they have bad technique. And that kind of goes along with golf is 90% mental and 10% mental. That's a quote out there. Or is it actually physical issue that you need to work on, or a combination of the two? So with these, with the setup, that's pretty easy to look at. Their dress posture, but sometimes the actual swing stuff, it's hard to catch with the naked eye. So they're free motion analysis or motion capture apps. Like I have Huddle Technique on mine, used to be called UberSense. They're free. Just download them on your phone, and you can use those and draw a line, slow it down, and actually look at things. I think it makes it a lot easier. Plus, it kind of helps. With patient buy-in too, because what you feel like you're doing is not necessarily real. So like I talked about earlier, if you've ever heard your swing video, it's usually a pretty humbling experience. You feel like you're doing what you see what you're doing are two completely different things. So I've had kids that have really long swings, rotating way too far, with back pain, and then I tell them, all right, I want you to do like a half swing, and then he does it, and I show him, and he's still going to parallel. I mean, to him, it feels like he's stopping right here. So when you actually show them that, they're like, wow, I guess I really am going that far. So it kind of helps them buy into what you're going there. So we'll go through some of these, just some potential causes, and also some issues that can result. So this reverse pivot, reverse spine angle, this is probably one of the most common ones. So that's where, so usually when you're swinging, you're going to shift to your back leg and then shift forward. Well, this is when you actually shift back here, but then you lean toward the target. So with this, that can be if you're lacking hip or spine rotation. So if you get, say I max out my spine rotation here, I still need to get the club back there somehow. So what I'll do, it might lift, switch and start lifting toward the target. But you can see what that does in my spine, and basically doing a quadrant test there. So that, or if they have posterior shoulder, posterior capsule tightness in the lead side, so if I can't get my arm across my body, then I might have to try to lean the club back up there. You have glute or quad weakness, so decreased dynamic stability on your back leg. You don't want to shift your weight. You'll stay to the front leg and then lean back like that. So as you can imagine, that can result in low back pain or even wrist injuries too, because the result of you doing that is you just shift back the other way and try to throw the club out of the ball there. Another one is over swinging or the left elbow breaking down. So like I said, you want the left arm, pretty straight but not rigid, but you also don't want to just completely bend it like this. So that can be a lot of the same things. If you have posterior capsule tightness or if you have limited spine mobility, you're going to get the club back there somehow. So you might be doing this. And then also there could be them trying to hit the ball too hard, trying to swing too hard, or too tight of grip pressure. So if they're gripping too tight, you can't really feel the club head and actually just swing the club. So I just death grip it back and then try to get back as far as I can and try to hit like that. And then hanging back or fall through there, so that can happen or be I guess a result of the reverse pivot, or maybe not, but it's kind of like the old man swimmer. They kind of go like this and like fall back like that. But seen that a lot. But so kind of flip side of with the reverse pivot, so they might not have good dynamic stability of their lead side, so they don't want to shift weight. It hurts if I turn and twist on my knee there, so I'll hang back and just flip my hands and throw it club there if they can't turn. So kind of a host of different things that can be there, or just bad balance too. I mean, if it's hard, you're swinging, once again, you're leaning forward, you're on a compliant surface, it might not have great balance. That's be more for like the older individual probably, but that could be a reason too. So that can cause low back pain. You'll lean back like this, but you'll have to flip your hands to try to hit the ball versus actually using your body to swing the club there. And then reverse C finish, this is where you see more like in the athletic population. So just finishing, real high back like this. So you can see that can be from a reverse pivot. So they start like this and then finish back like that. But it can also just be a really good golfer who's trying to hit the ball high. Sometimes we'll try to hit the ball up in the air like that and lean back. Some of the older golfers, Jack Nicklaus, some of the greats in the past used to finish like that. Most of the newer golfers don't. They're a little more just kind of finishing more upright there. As you can imagine, like over time can cause some microtrauma to your spine. So we see a lot of spondies in our patient population. So this could be one thing contribute to that. So these swing falls. So I talked about earlier, if you're looking at this and there's some obvious things with the swing, so sometimes you might not be able to pick out exactly like if it's a reverse pivot or this, but in general, just, we all do motion analysis on a daily basis. You can tell someone's swing's kind of not what it should be. So if you're looking at this, or if, say, all right, I found these specific impairments, these are all getting better, yet the person still has pain with golfing, like, kind of run out ideas from, PT or AT standpoint, things to work on, you might need to refer to a PGA teaching pro, so, or if they're newer to the game too, like I talked about earlier. So one kind of, recommendation, so there's this Tyler's Performance Institute, so TPI is very common. With this, teaching pros can actually get certified to this, so it doesn't necessarily mean they're like a great, teaching pro, but it means they definitely have a little bit more knowledge than the typical guy or gal on the street that would, maybe just say, oh yeah, just do this and this. They actually have a little bit of biomechanical knowledge to get certified through this, so they know how to modify swings based on restrictions and injuries and things like that. So that would be a potential start. I would say, I think it's called My TPI. If you go online, it'll give you a list of different instructors in your area. So if you feel like, all right, that's kind of beyond what I'm comfortable doing as far as like swing wise, or if you just feel like, you're good from a physical therapy or AT standpoint, you need someone else to address this, and that might not be a bad idea to look into that. And also keep in mind too, so just because, say you video their swing and they, they're just want to practice swing or actually hitting to a net, don't assume that's what they look like actually hitting the ball on a course, because everybody has beautiful looking practice swings. And you throw a ball like a white ball syndrome, you put a ball in front of it and try to hit it, it looks completely different. And also, when you see how far you actually have to hit, you usually swing a lot harder. So don't assume just because they have this free-flowing, beautiful swing in the net that they're actually doing that on a course. So keep that in mind as well. Another corny golf quote here. Golf game in which you yell 4, shoot 6, and write down 5. So some injury prevention. So biggest thing with this is obviously warm up. So with that, trying to prepare yourself physically and psychologically, reducing the risk of injury, and then performance enhancement as well. So some studies here, Fraggin et al. Found that only 10% of injured golfers actually perform adequate warm up. And then a study with female golfers, they found the injured ones were 45 more times likely to be, golfers that did not warm up were 45 times more likely to be injured in the past year than ones that did. So pretty significant increased chance there. So it's kind of good if you can bring up quotes or cite some of these when you're trying to get your patients to buy into what you're doing. Like, hey, you're 45 times more likely to get injured if you don't warm up. So comparing different warm-ups, so like dynamic versus passive. So once they looked at that, and they found with passive static stretching that actually had decreased club head speed, distance, and accuracy. So they were recommending, kind of, which I would say most of the say in general, like do more static stuff afterward. You want to do more dynamic beforehand. So that applies to the golf swing as well. So no one, it's like there's not like a gold standard routine is better than the other, but in general, just getting them moving, doing shoulder circles, windmills, just some rotational stuff, getting 2 clubs and swinging it. I didn't swing it both ways, not just swinging this way, actually swinging the other way too. Just getting them moving, at least doing something before they go out there, just hitting the driver as hard as they can on the tee box there. If they do go to the driving range before, which a lot of people don't, but they do have time to do that, have them start with their shorter clubs, their wedges first, and progressing the driver, not just throwing some balls down, cranking some drivers, go up there and try to see what happens. So doing that, and also putting practice. So this is an important one too. There was an article in JSBT back in 2008 about putting. So they looked at, they measured back extensor strength and a lot of other swing kinematics. So they measured them first and had them putt for 40 minutes, and then remeasured everything. And everything was essentially worse after they putted for 40 minutes. If you think with putting, it's essentially an isometric pull with your back extensors for however long you're there. So it just fatigues and it throws off everything from there. So the takeaway with that is telling your patients, all right, if it's fine to putt, but maybe keep it to like 10 or 15 minutes or break it up or something like that. Not just go out there and putt for an hour before you play, because that can significantly impact things. So they had less motion, less speed, and essentially everything was worse after doing that. That's my last golf quote. If you're caught on a golf course during a storm and afraid of lightning, hold up a 1-iron. Not even God can hit a 1-iron. Most people use 1-irons anymore, so it probably doesn't really apply. But so some special considerations. So with young golfers, once again it varies obviously depending on the person, but it's usually more like a strength stability type issue. But we see still some stability stuff, or some mobility stuff. But it's going to be more so that there's an increased likelihood they're new to the game. They're younger. They probably haven't been playing as long. So that's something to keep in mind about referring to a teaching pro, or kind of ask about if they've had lessons or how long they've been playing. Sport specialization too, we see that a lot. That's one sport, you're going to try to make it, and that's what we're going to try to focus on all year. So making sure they're hopefully getting a break in there. Now we're in Ohio, but they have indoor driving range. There's a dome down on Broad Street, so you can hit all year. So it's not like they're actually taking a break unless we try to. And then potential for secondary gain. So we see not a ton, but so with adults, you got your workers' comp patients are trying to get out of stuff. We'll see it sometimes with our kids trying to get out of their sport, not just for golf, just in general. Especially if you feel like, all right, their strength's getting better, their motion's good, everything checks out. Why are they not getting better? Well, I always try to talk to them to see if they really like playing their sport. Because if they don't, want to play, they're like, oh, I realize if I say my back so hurts, I don't have to go out and play 18 holes every day with my grandpa or whoever they're making me do it with, or or do all these lessons. So some kids don't want to do it. Their parents are like, oh, that's our key for the getting the scholarship. So you got to practice. Like they might say, I don't want to deal with this anymore. So that's something just to kind of check into with that. Really, I'd say with any sport though. Occasionally get a kid that you'll realize, oh, this kid doesn't even want to play. He or she's kind of figured out the system here. Older golfers be more mobility deficits, probably your primary focus on those. And then you also have to worry about comorbidities. They're going to have a lot more than we would see in our teenage population. they also might have unrealistic expectations as far as like what they can do swinging. So they might try to swing like golf pros, going all the way back into parallel full, 90, 110 degree shoulder turn, and they just don't have the capacity to do that. Or they're getting out driven by their playing peers. They're going to try to swing harder, things like that. So that could be something else. Just kind of quickly here, return to golf after surgery. So it depends on the type of surgery, surgeon preference, and quality repair, all of that. You got to make sure you're resolving all these impairments first. Make sure they have full strength and motion. Make sure all the surrounding joints are checking out. So the whole regional interdependence. Make sure you're not forgetting about all that stuff once you've normalized your strength and mobility at the surgical site. So looking at all that, and you also encourage your patient, if they're allowed, obviously depending on their surgery, to do some short game stuff, some putting and chipping. That way they're not completely sidelined. So kind of engage them a little bit. Hey, all right, I don't want you swinging, but you at least start working on this. You could really work on your short game. That's how you save the most strokes and get better is by working on your short game. That's the difference of the elite. There's some other differences, but the primary difference from like the elite pros and then kind of the smaller tours and things like that. The elite pros, they're awesome at their short game. They can get out of trouble anywhere. So that's something you can have them maybe work on and at least be engaged a little bit. And then for return to sports, there's the only one I've seen is just one that was in JSPT a long time ago. So I use that. It's not saying it's the best, but at least gives you something to give them a kind of regimented guideline there. It's over 5 weeks, starts with putting and chipping. So that's why I like that they're allowed to have them doing that all along. That way they can just kind of start a little bit farther on the list there. But as in teeing up the ball initially, they eliminate taking the divots, so like the impact, the force associated with that. So as in starting with that, they start with their shorter clubs, working up through their driver, and then going to 9 holes and 18 holes, and then different effort levels too. So it kind of has it all laid out. So that's the reference of that. That's one I like to use that way. I don't know if they actually follow it or not, probably not, but at least gives you something to give them versus like, oh, let's go out and play a little bit because they're going to go out and play 18 or they'll go to the range and hit forever. I'll felt fine, and the next day come back in blown up. So